was it that somehow kept you in touch with the Camilla that you are?
Well, I think a strong belief that love goes through walls. So we always felt connected to people we loved out in the world. Even though I was a victim, I didn't take on the role of victim necessarily. But it's and. I was a victim. And I chose not to take on the role. You know, I tried to keep some sense of control. And I think even by doing some of the practice we did was kind of maintaining some sort of sense of control. You know, I know that after the rape and during that whole period, I mean, by taking my mind away, that's also a psychological, you know, thing that happens. You know, you disassociate yourself. I mean, it goes, you go out because you can't deal with it. I do remember fleetingly allowing myself to think, what if? What if I could have done something? Could I have done something?
You mean to fight?
To fight, yes, to stop it. And then I thought, Camilla, you could not. It is not your fault. You know, and I do know how much shame goes with rape, you know, for people who've been raped. And I was determined not to go there.
Have you ever thought, actually, I would like to kill them in your fantasies, in your dreams, in moments of lowness?
No, I've never had that. I mean, when I came out, well, I got cancer, and that brought up a lot of anger. Of course it did, because I immediately blamed Paunch. And, you know, and I thought that was bloody good. You know, basically.
What you're blaming him was
well,
good.
and being angry.
There is the possibility, in theory, of an actual dialogue here. I mean, you know, there's a lot of arguments about, you know, if somebody's killed, then obviously that, you can't actually have a dialogue. But there is a possibility of you actually talking to them. Do you ever think about that? And do you think that would do anything that you haven't managed to achieve on your own? Or with John?
Interesting. I think I probably still would like to meet them. There was another war after that, and I'm, you know, probably most of them are killed. The only person that we recognised when the Scotland Yard came with various faces was actually a boss of theirs, and he was on trial in Moscow, and they said, do you want to go? And we said no.
Because?
Partly for our own health. He had shown us some kindness, actually, and we knew he would go to prison, and Russians, which he did, and he was killed in prison by other inmates.
But do you think it would add anything if you did actually...
But he wasn't one that we actually had a lot of engagement with.
But I mean, if you ever met Paunch, do you think that would give you anything that the journey that you've been on hasn't given you?
No, I don't know, actually. Probably not. Maybe we did behave in quite a forgiving way. We wanted to understand them. I think that's part of forgiveness. For me, there's a couple of definitions I like, which I go along with, which is giving up all hope of a better past. And that's really moving on. There's also releasing the grip of the perpetrator, because I don't really want to think about Paunch unless I like, or have anger inside me that's going to hurt me, not him, or any of them. I also think forgiveness is fluid, and I think, for me, compassion is there. When we came out, we knew there would be a press conference, and we didn't want to carry on a cycle of vengeance and violence. And we said, we do not feel bitterness towards these men, but we do not condone what they did. And I can tell you, if they walk through that door right now, those guys, I wouldn't hit them. I'll just say, do you realise what effect you had on another human being? I would want them to understand. Thank you for listening.
And in my own case, I've thought hard about the question of forgiveness. I've written about it. I eventually wrote a book about what happened to Charlotte. And I've just felt that in the specific circumstances that I found myself in, forgiveness is not something that's been a priority. It's not something I've needed to engage with and sort of affirm in order to come to terms with what happened to my sister. And one of the reasons I'm very happy to kind of say this and stress this, I think it's important for me to do so, is because I've had a particular concern around forgiveness in terms of the enormous pressure that people sometimes feel in a situation like this one, that they should come out and make a public declaration of forgiveness. And I've sometimes felt that that's done in a way that's quite inappropriate and then almost re-victimizes people and takes the ownership of people's experience away from them. I mean, the question is around, can you move on without forgiveness? So I guess the counter proposition would be that there's no way you could move on without forgiveness. And I think that would actually be quite an absolutist position and quite a dogmatic one. I think that forgiveness is an incredibly important and valuable human asset and resource. It's a human virtue, just like friendship, generosity, solidarity. But just like those qualities, there are times when solidarity with a particular person might not be appropriate, and friendship with a particular person may not be what's appropriate for you. And I think forgiveness is the same. It's context specific. And above all, I want to suggest that this is a question that's rightly in the hands of the victim. I use that word unapologetically. And what I want to really sort of assert is that whatever choice people make, we have to respect that choice. And there, of course, will be many circumstances when forgiveness is the appropriate response, but this is something that needs to be left to the person themselves to decide. I don't wake up and rage about what happened to Charlotte. Obviously, I went through that. I'm against the death penalty, absolutely. I think it's important to understand why people do terrible things. I think it's important to try and empathise with people. I don't think there's generally such a thing as a monster. I think we all have that capacity for violence. I know certainly I do, or I could if I was put into that situation. So I'm comfortable with that, but I wouldn't describe that as forgiveness. To some extent, I think there's something problematic about thinking about forgiving on behalf of somebody else. So the most that one could ever do in my situation, I think, would be to forgive the harm that was caused to me through the harm that was caused to my sister, which is frankly sort of minimal, really, by comparison. In terms of really moving on or living a more normal life, what's really helped me has been less any of that, in the sense it's just everyday things, being part of a close and supportive family, getting married and having a very kind and understanding wife, becoming the father of 2 beautiful young children, and those things those are the things that have really carried me forward. And I've just not felt the need for some kind of forgiveness process. I think partly because of the distance that's always characterised the experience that I've been through. So I don't want to sort of be misinterpreted. I think forgiveness is incredibly powerful. We all have things to forgive and be forgiven for, and certainly I know I do in my life. But in this particular case, in my particular experience, on this particular issue, I think it's something that I'm okay. It's not something I've needed to do, and I feel I've been able to move forward without having to do that.
I've got a friend who was raped in the Greenham Common days, and she at the moment is really hacked off with the word victim. It really gets her, and BBC always use it, the papers use it, victim offender mediation. I mean, it's used officially, and I've tried saying to her, well, it happens to be victim in English, it's just a word. It's just a word, we have... Anyway, it's no good. And she says, I was not a victim, I am a survivor. I wonder if you could just comment on that.
I think it's quite good to say you're a survivor, because it also helps you to move on. I mean, but I kind of, of course I know I was a victim, actually, and I chose not to take on the role. So, as I said earlier, but then I am a survivor. So I see it like that.
I think we need to reclaim the word victim. And, in my own situation, there was an attack, 21 people died, a number of people survived, right? So there were survivors and there were victims. And the people who survived were the people who didn't get killed. So there has to be a place to use the word victim. And there should be nothing shameful about the fact that we're vulnerable, we're capable of being abused, all of us, and when something bad is done to us, we are a victim. And to some extent, you could say I was a secondary victim of what happened to my sister. And I think that's okay, and I think we shouldn't be ashamed of it. That's really my feeling.
There is one story of Marina's stories that she's collected of a woman who, in the trial of the rapist who raped her, the judge says to the perpetrator, "You have ruined this woman's life." And she says, she remembers thinking, "No, he hasn't." And that's a terrific moment in that story, is what Camilla's saying. It's the understanding of the fact, but actually thinking, hang on a second, it's the grip of the perpetrator, isn't it, to some extent?